left until Election Day and only 1 day left before the third and final debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. But before they square off in Las Vegas, Trump teeing off in the latest developments in the Clinton email controversy. As we say good morning, 6 o'clock here in Las Vegas. I'm Bill Hemmer. Welcome to America's Newsroom. We're high on top of the MGM Grand. Great place.
Like it up
How you
here.
doing, right?
You like it up here?
So far. I mean, yesterday at this
Fantastic.
time, we had a slight tropical storm roll in here.
Yeah, we're crossing our fingers that that's not going to happen this morning. But welcome, everybody. I'm
Beautiful
Martha
morning.
McCallum. It is a beautiful morning in Las Vegas, Nevada, as we watch the sun come up about a half an hour from now. Boy, what a day it is for these two. They've got 24 hours left before the biggest remaining moment in this process towards Election Day 2016. Hillary Clinton, we understand, is hunkered down again today. That's what she likes to do. She has done that in the previous debates, just sort of focused and gotten ready on her own in private. Meanwhile, Donald Trump does what he loves to do, and that's get out there in front of a crowd, rallying supporters last night in Battleground, Wisconsin.
So Trump, part of his line attacking Clinton after newly released FBI documents reveal allegations of quid pro quo at the State Department, comparing it to one of the most infamous scandals in U.S. political history.
So Clinton and her cronies have sacrificed your security, your family's safety, and your country's safety as though it meant nothing to her at all, which it didn't. This magnitude's worse, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people in law enforcement. This is worse than Watergate, what's going on with this. And what does she get out of it? She gets to run for the presidency of the United States. Explain that.
All right, let's go to senior national correspondent John Roberts, who is live in Las Vegas with more on this. Good morning to you, John.
Martha, good morning to you. You know, Donald Trump has been anxious to change the subject going into tomorrow night's debate, and he may have just found an issue that he can capitalize on. This idea that there was a quid pro quo offer between the State Department and the FBI to change the classification on some of Hillary Clinton's emails. Donald Trump seized upon that information last night at his rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin, calling for Patrick Kennedy's resignation. Listen to this.
The FBI documents that show Undersecretary of State Patrick Kennedy made the request for altering classification as part of a quid pro quo. In other words, a deal. This is felony corruption by any standard. Undersecretary Kennedy needs to resign.
But tomorrow night's debate, what Donald Trump needs to do in order to get to policy is clear the decks of all of the allegations that have been leveled against him from these 9 women over the last week or so. In debate preparation, he's been working on an answer to try to put that to the side so that he can get in on some of the deeper issues. And yesterday, his campaign put out Melania Trump for her first public appearances since her appearance at the Republican National Convention back in July. She did 2 interviews, one of them with our Ainsley Earhart. Melania talked to her about the allegations leveled by these women and the infamous hot mic incident. Listen to this.
All the allegations should be handled in a court of law and without the evidence. To accuse somebody, is a man or a woman, it's damaging and it's unfair. Those words, they were offensive to me, and they were inappropriate. I accept his apology, and we are moving on.
We are moving on, she says, and she hopes that voters will as well. A lot of people see Donald Trump's last chance to turn the poll numbers around being tomorrow night's debate. If he doesn't do it, he could be headed for a bad election night.
Yep.
Martha?
All right, a lot at stake. John, thank you very much.
As we mentioned, terrific show ahead for you this morning. I want to start with analysis today. Byron York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. He is screen right, Fox News contributor, and Washington Times columnist Charlie Hurt, screen left. Actually, it's stage left. Screen right. How you doing, Charlie? Good morning to you. You're 36 hours away from the final debate. You're 21 days away from the election. Early voting is already underway in several battleground states. What do you believe is the state of the race today, Charlie?
Well, I think it's a lot closer right now than you would have thought it would be, considering the amount of incoming that Donald Trump has had. Some of it self-inflicted. I think a lot of it was unfair, but whatever. He has endured 2 or 3 weeks of just unimaginably bad press. He was in Wisconsin last night. You know, most people would sort of, that's not the swingiest of swing states anymore. But, you know, he's at about, the average of the polls, he's at about 7%, which is down 7%, which is about where Mitt Romney was at the end of the election. So he's still in this. And I agree with what you just said, or what John Roberts just said, that, you know, when it comes, I think this debate is going to be pivotal. I think this debate could decide this election.
Byron, you watch Melania there. She speaks very well, I think, for her family and for her husband. She takes the high road. And that is something that we haven't seen as much of from her husband. And I wonder if that might be the one posture that could help him expand his voters tomorrow night.
Well, somebody's got to take the high road in the Trump campaign.
Yes,
and
wouldn't that be nice?
She's going to do it. Now, you know, John Roberts said Trump has to find a way to kind of put all these allegations off the table. I'm not sure there is such a way to do that. Hillary Clinton's not going to want to let him do that. So he's going to have to come up with one heck of an answer. One other thing about the polls now. If you average all the national polls together, Hillary Clinton's lead is now 7 points. Barack Obama won by 3.9 points over Mitt Romney in 2012. That 3.9-point lead translated into 332 electoral votes to Romney's 206. So Trump has an enormous amount of ground to make up in 21 days.
In the past 24 hours, CBS has Clinton up 9. Monmouth poll has Clinton up 12. There's an NBC poll that came out earlier today where the margin of difference at the moment, there's CBS, Monmouth were next, and NBC had the difference at 8 points. To both of you, when Trump talks about a rigged election, what do you believe the effect of that is, if at all, when I know the argument you make? You believe that's his get out the vote.
It's his get out the vote, yeah.
Right? What do you think it is, Charlie?
I agree. It definitely is that. But, you know, there's a lot of hand-wringing in the media about the fact that he keeps using this term, and I get that. But what's kind of terrifying, or what I think is important about it, is the fact that there are millions and millions and millions of Americans who believe that, and believe that the system or whatever is rigged against them.
The media.
And the media, and you know, everything from global trade to illegal immigration to other economic issues. They feel like the system is rigged against them, and he's speaking for them. And going after Donald Trump for captivating that audience, I think is kind of not as important as figuring out, well, you know, gee, what's wrong? What's going on wrong here?
Yeah, you know, it seems to me that he has an opportunity tomorrow night to basically say, if you want everything to stay like this, right, if you want 4 more years, and I think so many of these stories get muddied, the quid pro quo, the WikiLeaks, but people do understand the larger picture, which is that there's, you know, sort of a pact in Washington and the media and corporate America that has allowed this to fester, and that the only way to change it would be to change it. And if this is a change election, perhaps the person who's leading it, maybe for that side of the equation, has to become less important than the overall motivation.
This is the opportunity he's had all along,
right,
to portray himself as the change agent, and he hasn't actually done it yet. The one thing about the email scandals and the drip of information and this alleged quid pro quo, you're right, it's very Clinton-esque, and it's like, do you want more of this stuff? I mean, as a matter of fact, one of Trump's better commercials about a month ago just had a fleeting picture of Bill and Hillary Clinton in that 1992 60 Minutes interview, and basically it's, do you want to go back to all this? Trump has not effectively made that argument, but it is a real effective argument to make, because remember, a lot of people a while back when Jeb Bush was a power, they said, you know, are we going to go with the third Bush or the second Clinton? Well, the Bush thing isn't happening, but the second Clinton is right there on the horizon, and this is his chance to make that argument.
One more point in this conversation. If you look at that Wall Street Journal polling, voter turnout could be as low as we have seen in perhaps 3 election cycles. They're talking about African Americans are less interested, young voters are less interested. We talked about that a lot. You're down 4 points from just 4 years ago. In a battleground state, if you are within the margin of error, 4 points can make a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, it's been a very ugly election, obviously. and neither all of the WikiLeaks stuff that's come out for Hillary Clinton actually managed or rather the stuff going on with Donald Trump managed to actually get his unfavorables among his own supporters down to the sort of level with Hillary Clinton at one point, and that I think is a pretty good picture of just how kind of unpleasant the political debate has been this year.
Do you both believe that voter turnout will be lower than we
It could very well. Hillary Clinton's job has always been to try to reassemble the Obama coalition, minorities, women, young people. She's certainly done it with women, but we've seen a lot of stories about how minority voters are not as excited about her as they were about Barack Obama. She'll probably be under him in terms of turnout and percentage. So if she has a problem as far as turnout is concerned, that's it.
Thank you, Byron. Thank you, Charlie.
Sure.
Thank you.
Back to the slot machines, you men go. Quickly.
So remember, Fox News has you covered leading up to this big debate tomorrow night. What an important moment this is. And you don't know what's going to happen. That's what we learned in this process, right? So for the first time ever, a Fox News journalist will be moderating that debate. The honor goes to our own Fox News Sunday anchor, Chris Wallace. The final debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton set for tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, live from the campus of the University of Nevada in Las Vegas.
Looking forward to that. In the meantime, as these two get ready to battle it out, some new polls show a very tight race in some of the more critical battleground states.
Those polls were great today, but they're also showing there's like an undercurrent that they can't poll. Remember when I was in the primaries? How's he doing on such and such? Well, it looks like he won't win that state. Then the next day, it's like, you win in a landslide. They say, what happened? Now, we'll take it anyway. I mean, this is, I guess, like people don't want to say they're voting for Trump, which is okay. We'll take it any way we get it. Do you agree?
So Trump making the case the momentum is still on his side. I want to bring in Karl Rove right now, from White House Deputy Chief of Staff to George Bush. And Karl, good morning to you. Some viewers are hitting us on Twitter about asking for the Hillary Clinton comments. I don't believe she made a public statement yesterday, so she is well in the mode of debate prep. Get to that in a moment. First, I think what Trump is referring to there are voters who don't show up in the polling. Do you believe there is some truth to that or not?
I believe there may be a little bit of truth to it, but not a lot. I think that if you look at the whole range of polling that has been done, the last 4 weeks essentially have not been good for him. And he has dropped on the ballot. His favorables have dropped. And most important of all, his enthusiasm level among his supporters has dropped. She now has, generally in virtually every poll, more enthusiastic followers than he does. So, look, this is the kind of thing that you say as you're coming down the pike trying to keep your team together, but I wouldn't make my appeal based on that. I think he was on firmer ground when he went after Patrick Kennedy last night and tattooed him for quid pro quo with the FBI.
We just played a bit of that. Battleground states quickly now. In Ohio, Quinnipiac has them even, 45-45. Margin of error is almost 4 points there. In Florida, Quinnipiac has Clinton up 2. Margin of error still applies. North Carolina, CNN has Clinton up a point. Margin of error there as well. As you look at the battleground states and how close they are, typically with 21 days to play, let's say, what is the factor that causes it to break one side or the other? Is it about tomorrow night, or is it more than that?
Well, it's about more than tomorrow night. I've made the point that it's not just what happens on debate night, it's what happens in between, before and after debate nights. For example, the first debate, I think everyone acknowledges Trump had a bad night. What did he do? He spent the next 5 days attacking a former Miss Universe. He had a better debate the second day, the second debate. What did he spend the next 5 days doing? Picking a fight with Republicans. He wasted the periods in between the debates, even when he did reasonably well at a debate, and even when he did badly at debate. You mentioned those battleground polls. If you take a look at the Real Clear Politics average, they tend to, those polls tend to fall in line with the national average. You said Ohio, he's ahead. He's ahead in Ohio in the Real Clear Politics average. Those other states, he's behind, though not by much. But remember this, he carries all the states you talked about. He carries Nevada, where he's slightly behind, North Carolina, Ohio, and Florida. That only gets him to 253 should be 259 electoral votes. There's only one other state in the Real Clear Politics average where he's leading. That's Iowa. That gets him to 265. So even if he takes these three states, Ohio, North Carolina, and Nevada, that he's behind today, wins the two states where he is slightly ahead, he still is short of 270, and not a single other state in the Real Clear Politics average is at or below the national average of 7 points.
Well, he has to thread that, and we'll see what happens then.
He has to, yeah.
But before we get there, what is your expectation for tomorrow night?
Well, first of all, I think this is going to be the most substantive debate because we're going to have Chris Wallace asking questions. Oh, yeah, look, first of all, it's going to be the format is going to be Wallace asking questions. He's not a gotcha kind of guy. He has signaled that it's going to be substantive, and we're going to get a chance for each one of these people, if their mind is in the right place, to score points on their behalf. If Donald Trump's mindset is, I've got to demonstrate that I'm the candidate of change, as Martha said earlier, the more he shows that he's the candidate of change, here's constructive change that I want to have, and here's why I'm different from the status quo, he can score points. On the other hand, if she demonstrates both the temperament to be president and demonstrates the willingness to accept some change, she can advance her cause and slightly undermine his. But again, we got to look at tomorrow night in the context of what is coming and what follows. And I think yesterday was an important lesson for Trump. For the first time in the last 3 weeks, he took an event of the day, the release of the Patrick Kennedy emails and exchange, and introduced it, made it an issue. Now he needs to broaden it. Here's the interesting thing. He can broaden it today and in the days ahead by saying, you know, Patrick Kennedy was not only trying to get a quid pro quo with the FBI in order to tilt the investigation in her favor. Remember, Patrick Kennedy is her man who refuses the security upgrades from Benghazi that led to the disaster in Benghazi. This is her fixer. We can't let her and her people be in office.
I'm out of time. Thanks. Wallace is in an undisclosed location. He's sequestered somewhere. We haven't heard from the man. But tomorrow night, main stage. Carl, thank you for the analysis. Carl over there in Austin.
You bet.
Thanks. Martha.
And the WikiLeaks spigot has been turned back on. There's more emails that are pouring out this morning from the account of the Clinton campaign chairman, John Podesta. We're going to show you what is in those. Ed Henry going through them as we speak. Some stunning information in there that has now been made public, how it may affect the race.
The United States strongly condemns the illegal disclosure of classified information.
It was 6 years ago next month when a titanic clash started between one of the most powerful women in the world, Hillary Clinton, and a man who was the previously little-known founder of WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. He rattled the American Secretary of State in November of 2010 by leaking out 250,000 classified diplomatic cables. And now Assange may be threatening no less than Clinton's path to the Oval Office from the most unlikely of places, Assange's tiny bedroom at the Ecuadorian embassy in London.
What a story this has been. The WikiLeaks bombshells keep coming. This morning, we've got the latest batch of the hacked emails just out. It includes messages about Benghazi and how much support Hillary Clinton should show for Israel. Ed Henry's been going through them. He joins us now live from Washington. So, Ed, good morning to you. So what's in this latest batch?
Well, round 11 of the John Podesta emails literally coming out in the last half hour or so. Give you a quick update on some headlines. One about Benghazi you mentioned. We see an email exchange among John Podesta, other top aides, where Hillary Clinton was being coached on, in their words, how to stir up some moral outrage against Republicans at this Benghazi hearing several months ago, saying in part, use the line about how they're gaining politically off, quote, the backs of 4 dead Americans. Of course, that was a line she read at that hearing. You remember that well. The other thing is about Israel, one that just came out that suggests that early on, as her campaign began, early 2015, her aides were debating whether or not to say she was a strong ally of Israel in her opening stump speech in those early days. And several top aides squashed that and said, no, that's going to upset the left and Democratic activists if you look too strong for for Israel. That's going to raise some eyebrows in the Mideast and here in Washington, obviously, but also gets at really what's the bottom line question here. As we sort out for our viewers these thousands and thousands of emails, more than 10,000 John Podesta emails now, which is that you're seeing two different Hillary Clintons. You're seeing one in public on Israel, for example, saying now, strong ally of Israel, be there for Israel, do whatever I can in her speeches. And then in private, they're saying, well, wait a second, let's not be too strong of an ally publicly. That's going to hurt us with the left. And we've seen that again and again when the Wall Street transcripts come out, for example, finally, in these email dumps, something that she resisted from Bernie Sanders. Why did she do that? Well, because when she was talking to Goldman Sachs for hundreds of thousands of dollars a speech, she was saying, oh, you know, you just need a public and a private position on issues like trade. You tell the public one thing, but in private you have a totally different position in order to negotiate. She also sort of downplayed her support for Wall Street reform, saying, yeah, we had to do Dodd-Frank for political reasons. It wasn't really about the substance. And finally, telling these Wall Street bankers that were paying her big money for a speech, you know what, I don't know why in this country, Hillary Clinton said, there's such a bias against successful people like you who've made so much money on Wall Street. Well, that's the opposite of what she said in the first two general election debates now against Donald Trump, going after him for being rich in his business ties. So as Karl Rove was just saying, can Trump in this final debate there tomorrow night prosecute that very case about these two different Hillary Clintons?
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to Bill Clinton, too, and triangulation, you know, where you sort of try to figure out a way to say the right thing to this side, the right thing to that side, and really not give either side what they want. Now, some people might just say, look, that's just politics. But Donald Trump does have an opportunity here to remind people of this very long pattern that exists.
You're right, Martha, because yes, it's politics. It's politics as usual. And Donald Trump's whole appeal has been blow everything up. This is a change election. And so if Hillary Clinton's defense is going to be, look, everybody does this. This is just politics. This is what's been driving some of the anger out there, number one. Number two, you mentioned Bill Clinton. Well, there's some other revelations here that people shouldn't forget, which is about the Clinton Foundation. At one point, Bill Clinton accepting a $1 million check from Qatar, a U.S. ally, for the Clinton Foundation on his birthday, when Hillary Clinton in other emails is saying Qatar is helping support and fund ISIS. So which one is it? Are they helping ISIS, or are you willing to take a $1 million check to help the foundation? Some big stories here, Martha.
It's clearly the kind of stuff that has fired up Trump supporters from the beginning. The feeling that they're shut out, that everybody makes these deals and that they're not part of it as American citizens. Ed, thank you very much.
We'll see next time. And we'll see how that plays out tomorrow night.
Joe Trippi, former Howard Dean campaign manager and Fox News contributor, and Boris Epshteyn is senior advisor to the Trump campaign. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to have both of you with us. Let me swing over to you, Joe, first. In terms of these charges of a rigged election, is it true, A, and B, does it get him anywhere?
I think it gets him someplace with his supporters, gets him to the, make sure you get to the polls, but I don't think it gets him anywhere. He may have a point with some of the contributions that reporters have given. I mean, that argument. Yeah. But the rigged fraud part is just nowhere near reality.
Boris, sometimes he argues that the polling centers are rigged. And then some of his surrogates argue, no, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the media rigging it toward Hillary Clinton.
Well,
so what is it?
It's both. First of all, 96% of donations by the media in this cycle has been to Hillary Clinton. 96%. Second of all, just last week, the coverage of the two negative stories, the false accusations versus Donald Trump versus the WikiLeaks and the FOIA information by Hillary Clinton, 23-1. 23 times coverage of Mr. Trump's negative stories versus Hillary Clinton's. Now, on the polling, on the voting, I was on the McCain campaign in 2008. Right here in the state of Nevada, most of the Dallas Cowboys offensive line and the starting lineup really was registered to vote here fraudulently. Look through Pennsylvania, Colorado, where dead people supposedly voted, Virginia, and just the fire. Well, they can't vote because they're dead. And then hold on, Joe. And then in North Carolina, you just had the firebombing right now of the GOP headquarters. That's voter intimidation. Voter fraud has many faces to it. It's voter intimidation, it's voter registration fraud, and then it's actual voter fraud. And now we also know from the Washington Post, that non-citizens have been voting in this country. Yeah. So yes, both of these issues are true.
It's a legitimate concern for any American. Everybody wants our election system. It's the bedrock of our democracy. It has to be as clean as humanly possible.
Yeah, so this is how clean it is. Study of all elections since 2000, over 1 billion people have voted. 31 cases of documented voter fraud.
Study by who?
In the United
The Brennan
States.
Center, which is a known left center.
No, like there's not a single study on voter fraud out there, unless it's been from
the Pew study, the Washington. I just cited the Washington Post. The Pennsylvania report alone found 700 instances.
This is like.
Are you arguing that there were 30 or 31 votes in total?
No, 31 documented cases where.
But the cases involved how many votes?
Not that many. It's just this is a very rare thing in this country, and that's what I think is wrong. Look, I think there are legitimate questions. I think Boris named off a couple. I mean, the contributions, coverage, those kinds of things. If you want to talk about that, I think Trump can go to town on it. But to insinuate and tell people that this election is being rigged and stolen at the voting booth, these states, Ohio, Florida, they're run by Republican Secretary of States, Republican governors.
Well, we're talking about other states like Pennsylvania, Colorado, Virginia.
Oh, so it's only happened in the Democrat.
It's happened in Ohio. Here's the issue. I don't understand why the Democrats are against integrity of the election. All we're saying is we want to make sure that non-citizens don't vote, that voters are not intimidated at the polling places like they were in 2008 with the new Black Panthers in Pennsylvania.
What do you say to those
critics? What's wrong with that?
What do you say to those critics who say he's just preparing a reason? If he loses, it's going to be all about this. It won't be because he had any missteps. It'll be all about this.
We're not preparing to lose. We're going to win this election. We'll win it on the issues. We'll win it on national security, on the economy, and on Hillary Clinton being absolutely disqualified from being president. And now with all the
There's another explanation of this is a get out the vote effort drive. Is there truth to that?
Well, we obviously want as many Republicans, independents, as well as Democrats
I get it,
to
but
vote.
is this part of the strategy?
The strategy, Bill, is to make sure that there is integrity in our elections. And that's what Mr. Trump is talking about. But it's also to point out that there has been rampant voter fraud all over this country, in this state, in the state of Nevada, in Colorado, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio. In Ohio, where they have same-day voting and registration, rampant voter fraud by Acorn in 08. And since they bust people from Illinois to Ohio to vote.
What about the journalism argument that journalists should not be supporting and giving money to any candidate?
I'm not sure.
A, and then B, that is also reflected in the coverage. That when you look at the front of the Washington Post, you look at the front of the New York Times, the WikiLeaks stories are this big, and the Trump stories and these accusations that could be unfounded are everywhere.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know that it said media contributions to Clinton. I maxed out to Hillary Clinton. People should know that, but I mean, it's obvious.
You're a partisan.
But I'm not a journalist.
Exactly.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Totally
so I don't know who am I. But when they put those figures out, am I
about journalists, talk about hosts, talk about people who write in the paper.
No, that's what I meant. So I don't think I don't believe the anchors should be doing that. I don't think
we will see if Trump talks about it again today. Joe, thank you. Boris, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Remember this now from presidential debate number 2. It was 9 days ago when we got these allegations now. Some suggest they are bombshells. Quid pro quo in the Hillary Clinton email investigation. FBI files show an unnamed bureau official said that a State Department staffer offered the FBI a deal to strip the classified marking from an email on Clinton's server, and apparently they tried it repeatedly. The State Department just this morning denies any collusion on this deal.
We looked into this, the FBI looked into this, and it's just not true. There was no quid pro quo even suggested or any kind of bargain laid on the table. What did happen, though, is Pat Kennedy did talk to the FBI, as he did on other email traffic that we were getting ready to release through FOIA, to discuss and try to better understand why they wanted something classified.
All right, so no collusion. That's John Kirby from earlier. John Bolton, now former U.S. ambassador to the UN. So the FBI says there was no, in the end, this for that. No one got anything. But it is clear that the request was made, and it may have been done, according to our reporting this morning, on numerous occasions. Now, what are we to understand about how serious the nature of this allegation is?
Well, I think it's extraordinarily serious, and the fact that the trade wasn't made doesn't detract from that. Attempted bribery is just as much a crime as actual bribery. Let's say two things on this. Remember Rod Blagojevich, the governor of Illinois, who, given the vacancy in an Illinois Senate seat when Barack Obama was elected president, said, "I've got something golden here I'm going to trade." And for that, Blagojevich went to jail. What Patrick Kennedy was trading here was slots for the FBI and American embassies overseas. It may not sound like much, but in the bureaucracy, that was golden too. So in a way, Patrick Kennedy is the Rod Blagojevich of Hillary Clinton's State Department. Number two, he was an undersecretary of state. I was once myself. There are only 6 of them in the State Department. He's not some munchkin. And I think he's really the circuit breaker between the State Department bureaucracy and Hillary Clinton. Under Kennedy are diplomatic security, information technology, overseas buildings, human resources, administration. This is where it all comes together. And I think he was communicating with Hillary Clinton or with her staff. I think they knew what was going on, and if they didn't, they were asleep at the switch.
The judge was on this program exactly at this hour yesterday. You're an attorney. He says the mere suggestion of this is a crime in itself. Could you win that case in court?
This is attempted bribery. Yeah, absolutely. It is inconceivable to me that a State Department official could do this. You can't change the classification of information, whether it's a document or some other tangible form, for any reason other than a change in the circumstances that gave rise to the classification in the first place. Patrick Kennedy was doing a political task for Hillary Clinton, trading on government information and government resources, the slots in the overseas embassies. So this was bribery with your taxpayer assets at stake. It's just he should be removed from office. Certainly, if I had tried to do it, I would have been removed.
Yeah, I get it. If she wins in 21 days, what is the hangover from these allegations, or perhaps evidence, if she's president?
Yeah, look, I think it means that all of the questions about her conduct at the State Department continue. Remember, another aspect of Patrick Kennedy, he was deeply involved in Benghazi. He is the person who appointed the Accountability Review Board that exonerated Hillary Clinton of any wrongdoing in connection with Benghazi, any incompetence, without even ever bothering to interview her. And the emails in question that he was trying to trade on were Benghazi-related emails. I mean, this cries out for the State Department not going into a defensive crouch, but opening this up, because the conduct is unacceptable.
I'm out of time. Thank you, sir. Mr. Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for your time today. You bet. Martha.
Melania Trump speaking on camera for the first time since the release of the video that rocked her husband's campaign, how she is responding to those remarks and to the backlash. When we
said that, wasn't one of the 2 individuals involved in the conversation. Pat Kennedy and the other FBI official was not the person who gave this interview. I can't speak to what that individual remembers or how they remember it. What I can tell you is we've looked into this. There was no quid pro quo even suggested. There wasn't even an inkling of that. And the FBI said the same thing.
Joining us now, special report anchor Brett Baer and Jennifer Griffin, who has been on the Clinton campaign and covering that throughout. Welcome to both of you. Great to be with you here in Las Vegas.
You guys winning or losing out here, by the way?
Even so far.
Really?
Not too much time out here.
Yeah, it is. In Vegas, that means
right.
I wish I could say the same, but we'll get into that later. So, Patrick Kennedy, is this issue, there's been such a huge faucet full of this information coming out. How do you think it works with the American people? Can Donald Trump use this to his advantage if he can sort of grasp it and make sense out of it tomorrow night for the people?
I think it just fits in this overall feeling like there is this other level that Hillary Clinton is somehow exempt from the law that would dictate what would happen if somebody else did some of this stuff. The Patrick Kennedy thing, again, it's complicated. We explain it, I think, pretty well. But he is trying to get this email unclassified so then he can have this arcane FOIA, Freedom of Information Act process to bury this thing in the State Department. So nobody sees it, but it is unclassified, so it's technically not a classified email on her server. That was the problem. When she came out at the United Nations and said what she said, there were likely people inside her campaign and inside her staff that said, wait a second, boss.
Now, listen, they're saying it did not happen in the end, and who knows what is next in this story. but you can trace it through the emails, and I think in time we'll figure out what the truth is. I thought you had an excellent piece last night with Ed Henry, because there's such a volume of these emails, as Martha points out. How much of this is being absorbed by voters? How much of it is getting coverage? We talk about it. Sometimes we feel like we're the only ones.
Yeah. And it's worth spending the time, because you need context, you need perspective of where these emails fall in these different subjects. So we decided to give it, 7-8 minutes of our show to try to put it together. We'll do it again, because these things are flowing by the thousands.
Again today.
Yeah.
But to use it effectively, Donald Trump tomorrow night needs to sort of have, a 5-point plan and say, you have, Hillary Clinton, a corrupt government that you've overseen, and here's 5 examples that people can sort of wrap their arms around. I don't know if he, has successfully done that in the past. He said you should be in jail, that kind of thing. But how does she respond to that? What do you think her camp is ready for tomorrow night, Jennifer?
Well, I think what you're seeing the Clinton campaign do is they want to play out the clock. They know that every day that Donald Trump is on the campaign trail speaking, he is taking up airtime. These women who are coming out accusing him of sexual assault, it is diverting attention away from not only the WikiLeaks leaks every day, 2,000 emails or so from John Podesta, her campaign manager, but also, and this is an important distinction for our audience, the Patrick Kennedy conversations came out of the FBI notes from the investigation into her. So the whole thing is very ugly. And the thing the Clinton campaign worries about is that it will cause voters not to go to the polls. If women in particular find that this race is so distasteful that they stay home, that's a problem for Clinton.
Some of the Wall Street Journal reporting yesterday on the polling suggests that we're seeing that already. Take us behind the curtain of the Clinton campaign. They are reaching in the red states. What red states are they? Do they feel they are truly in play? Or is this because she has a lot of money and has time to spend?
Well, she certainly has a lot of money. She's been fundraising. And what's interesting is Robbie Mook, her campaign manager, yesterday had a conference call in which he described how they're spending $6 million candidating at prongs trying to help Democrats retake the Senate. So any place you see that Hillary Clinton is traveling in the next few days, it is because there's early voting starting. So she's going out to Ohio and Pennsylvania and Florida, key states where early voting is starting. 45% of the votes will be cast before Election Day. So every day is Election Day for the Democrats right now, and they are spending money on races that you wouldn't expect. They're going to spend $2 million in Arizona, which is typically Democrats have not won Arizona since 1992.
You're spending money in Texas.
I mean, Indiana, Missouri, red states, Georgia. They think Georgia is in play. So this is a very interesting strategy. They also, I'm told, they want to run up the electoral map. They want this to be a punishing victory, not just for Donald Trump.
You are talking as if that they have a big sense of confidence at the moment.
Very big sense of confidence if they look at the analytics. This is a campaign built on analytics. It's not built on a feeling. It's not built on a message. It is on analytics. It's about getting out the vote in these battleground areas. They are even putting money into congressional districts in Nebraska and Maine where they can pick off one electoral vote because those states have divide up their electoral
I mean, talk about a campaign that was built on a feeling, and you talk about Donald Trump, and you look at a place like Arizona. I haven't heard him talk about the border in quite some time. I mean, you think about the themes that really worked for him. The forgotten man, right? I mean, that's a potent campaign. The border. Toughening our stance around the world. These are issues that worked for him so profoundly and helped him win the primary, and they're getting lost in the shuffle, I think many would say, Brett.
Yeah, I would think that immigration comes up pretty significantly in the debate Wednesday night. I do agree with you, though. He has now taken a different turn to, this being rigged, and rigged in multiple ways. The media is rigging it, and you look at the WikiLeaks and how many interchanges there are, the actual voting and concerns about the election, and that's raising some questions, some alarm bells for not only Democrats but Republicans about how that's going to be perceived. And one more thing on the WikiLeaks. The other thing is that some people see this as a direct threat to our sovereignty because Russia is believed to be behind this, and they believe that this is not fully being examined on that front. I think it is. We're raising it as well, but there's also substance in these emails.
Well, I think it's important to point out, Brett, that the Democrats and the Clinton campaign are also crying that this is a Watergate situation. They are saying that Russia's involvement with WikiLeaks and the exposure of these emails is the equivalent of stealing filing cabinets during Watergate. So both sides are now pointing fingers, calling this out.
I also want to point this out, too. Trump's calling for a drug test before the big debate tomorrow night. So in 2016, folks, this actually happened at the press room at the White House. Watch.
Donald Trump suggested that presidential candidates should have to take a drug test. White House response?
Well, so you're telling me that the candidate who snorted his way through the first 2 debates is accusing the other candidate of taking drugs? It's a curious development in the campaign.
Yeah, I think he was trying to be glib there, but I mean, Howard Dean had to walk back what he said, so we'll see what happens here.
Unbelievable. I mean, it is unbelievable. You just, it's like a movie. It's real.
On the Clinton team, does anyone think the absurdity of some of the exchanges back and forth have gone overboard or have crossed the line where even regular campaign watchers would have said, we've gone there?
Oh, yes. In fact, we hear it all the time. I think their biggest problem is trying to keep a straight face through this and also not to look too gleeful when they see what they see as unforced errors by Donald Trump.
Which is what the Saturday Night Live skit is all about, you know.
Matadors, right?
I love that with the wing.
Thank
Don't
you,
want to
Jennifer.
celebrate too early.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Brett. Good to see you both. So as we've been reminding you, and as we hope you remember, for the first time ever, tomorrow night a Fox News journalist will be moderating a presidential debate. We've done lots of primaries, but it's a very big moment for Fox, and we're proud of Chris Wallace, and he's going to do a great job tomorrow night as he sits down to moderate the final debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, live from the campus of the University of Nevada here in Las Vegas.
Has anyone seen Wallace? I mean, what's he doing, Brad? Is he in a cave? Or?
I don't know. He's holed
up.
He's holed up. But you know what?
So Melania Trump speaking out on camera for the first time about the 2005 video of her husband Donald making comments about women that many felt were lewd and clearly inappropriate. So she says that the video does not show the man that she knows and that she has accepted his apology. Watch.
Those words, they were offensive to me. And they were inappropriate.
Is it fair for the media to bring up Bill Clinton's past or for Donald Trump to bring up Bill Clinton's past?
Well, if they bring my past, why not?
So they're asking for it?
They're asking for it. They started from the beginning of the campaign, putting my picture from modeling days, as you want that to be your first lady.
Hurt feelings there, to be sure. Rich Lowry joins us now, editor of the National Review and a Fox News contributor. Matthew Littman is political consultant and former speechwriter to Vice President Joe Biden. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you both here today. This was something that needed to happen. Melania Trump needed to come out and speak on behalf of her husband. Was it too late? And will it be effective? What do you think, Rich?
Well, you're right. Any sort of scandal of this nature, you need the spouse out there vouching for the candidate. She's a very elegant lady, and I think she did the best she could. I don't think it's going to change perceptions one way or the other, really. I mean, that tape is so vivid. Donald Trump is such a big and dominating personality. It doesn't really, it's more his performance that matters rather than what anyone else is saying about him, even his wife.
Let's play one more soundbite from this interview, and then we'll get Matthew to weigh in.
He's not the man that we heard him on the tape. Many times I gave him an advice and I didn't agree to do all the tapes on Howard Stern with Billy Bush, because I know those people, they hook him on. They try to get from him some inappropriate and dirty language.
I mean, there's some truth to that, to be sure, Matthew, that, you know, in those environments, when you're on with Howard Stern, he wants to get something saucy and salacious out of everybody he has on. I think most people, Howard Stern has said he's not going to release those tapes because specifically for that reason. Does this help Donald Trump politically, this speaking out by Melania Trump?
Well, there are three problems with the interview yesterday. She's a fine spokesperson, but the problems are this. One is you have to be with your spouse when you're giving a talk like this to show that there's some warmth in your relationships and that you actually forgive the person for the statements that they've made. They've appeared together before, so I don't know why they didn't appear together now. The other thing is she hasn't appeared on the campaign for a really long time. I think basically since the convention, too, is she went after this media conspiracy with the Clintons, but also saying that the New York Post was part of that media conspiracy. The New York Post may be literally the only newspaper in America that endorses Donald Trump. And then three, the bigger point is she's saying that Howard Stern basically pulled Trump around by his nose and Billy Bush pulled Trump around. All they have to do is sort of egg him on a little bit. How is he falling for all of these people who are able to egg him on so much? Billy Bush, Howard Stern, and it's not dissimilar to what Putin has done to Donald Trump. Putin basically said Donald Trump's a smart guy, and Donald Trump then came out and said, we may not need NATO. I mean, so, you know, it's not just the Billy Bush and Howard Stern thing. If this is manifesting itself for Trump in other ways, if you compliment him or lead him on a little bit, he ends up doing whatever you want, basically.
Martha, can I just...
I mean, when you think about it, just from a purely political viewpoint, there's been way too many days spent on this, right? And I think Matt makes a really good point, that if they had sat down together, which they still could, I think it would have helped them to put this to rest. And we really have not seen, I mean, I know Ivanka has been on that trail, and they've done interviews and all of that, but not to the extent that you might have expected, given the fact that coming out of the convention, everybody, all they could talk about was the family and how great they all were, especially the women.
Right. Absolutely right. A candidate that has such a problem with women voters, you think he'd make more of an effort to have his wife and his daughter out there. Now, look, you're not going to have Melania standing behind him at one of these rallies where he's, you know, going on for an hour, but you can do other kind of events where he's with her, and certainly featuring Ivanka more, you know, whose whole brand is about being the working professional mother. Instead, the main surrogates, you know, they're Rudy and they're Christy and Newt, all of whom have their virtues and advantages, but they're not going to soften Trump up any. And I just, Martha, I think politically, Trump needs to, the extent he can, just stop talking about this, stop talking about the accusers, stop talking about the election being rigged, instead go back to his core message of change. If he has any chance of tightening this thing up on the end, that's what he needs to do.
I'll say it again. I mean, we've said that we got to go, but you know, we've seen politicians all the time say, I've said all I'm going to say about that, and move on.
Well, Rich is right, though. But you have to repeat your core message. Rich is right. You have to repeat your core message over and over again for it to break through.
Intro politics. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Rich. Good to see you.
So the Clinton team now fighting back.
Your family's safety and your country's safety as though it meant nothing to her at all.
Donald Trump blasting Hillary Clinton. This after allegations one of her top aides at the State Department, Undersecretary Pat Kennedy, offered the FBI more job slots overseas in exchange for lowering the classification for one of Clinton's emails. Guy Cecil from Priorities USA Action. He was political director of Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. And Guy, thank you for your time, and good morning to you back there in Washington, D.C.
Good morning.
If this comes up tomorrow night, what's going to be her defense?
Well, I expect it to come up tomorrow because what else could Donald Trump possibly do to distract from the horrible 2 weeks he's had? I think that there are a couple of really important points here. First of all, on the issue of classification itself, it is common for folks within departments and between departments to discuss classification of emails, and I think more importantly, both the FBI and the State Department have called into question the initial report, acknowledging that there was no quid pro quo, acknowledging, in fact, that parts of the email were classified, but also even further within the report, there were conflicts between two reports that happened and were released this week. And so at the end of the day, I think she'll address it.
Yeah, the mere suggestion of it is a crime. So how does she address it then, Guy?
Well, I think with the facts, and also by pointing out the fact that neither she nor the campaign were involved in this discussion as it was ongoing.
Here is part of the email on screen, redacted. That's an individual's name at the FBI. Indicated that he had been contacted by Patrick Kennedy, Undersecretary of State, who had asked his assistance in altering the email's classification in exchange for a quid pro quo. And apparently it wasn't just one time. It was repeatedly So now you start to get into the potential for a pattern for requests for lowering classifications to essentially protect her. And just on the surface, Guy, it doesn't look good.
Well, first of all, as you might imagine, I was not a part of the internal conversation, so I think some of these questions would be best addressed to the State Department and the FBI. However, I would note that you just happened to leave out the part of the report that actually directly contradicted this and said, in fact, it was the FBI that had brought this up. So I think you have a conflicting report. You have a New York Times story today that says both the FBI and the State Department suggest that there was no quid pro quo, and in fact, there wasn't one offered. And so I think to get to the bottom of it, these questions should be directed to the two agencies. But it's important to point out that neither Hillary nor the Clinton campaign had anything to do with these conversations. And at the end of the day, the reason Donald Trump is discussing it is to distract from the fact that he has had probably the worst 2 weeks in modern presidential campaign history.
There was another story from USA Today, and that shows the links between companies and fundraisers for Hillary Clinton lobbying the State Department. These are major American companies: Microsoft, Pfizer, Exxonmobil, all gave donations between $1 and $5 million. It just gets you back into this area, Guy, where everybody in Washington is swimming in the same pool. And to the voter on the outside that's looking for change and looking to try and make their life better, they see this as being the root of the problem in Washington, and the politics and the intersection of money is at the heart of it all. And now you have a major candidate who is being mixed up yet again in the money, in the policies on a government level, in addition to recruiting money from overseas governments. And if she is the President of the United States, there will be questions about whether or not there was an inherent conflict of interest as to what they were doing all along. I'll give you the last word on that, Guy. Go.
Sure. So I would try to put that to the side so that he can get in on some of the deeper issues. And yesterday, his campaign put out Melania Trump for her first public appearances since her appearance at the Republican National Convention back in July. She did 2 interviews, one of them with our Ainsley Earhart. Melania talked to her about the allegations leveled by these women and the infamous hot mic incident. Listen to this.
All the allegations should be handled in a court of law, and without the evidence. To accuse somebody, is a man or a woman, it's damaging and it's unfair. Those words, they were offensive to me, and they were inappropriate. I accept his apology, and we are moving on.
We are moving on, she says, and she hopes that voters will as well. A lot of people see Donald Trump's last chance to turn the poll numbers around being tomorrow night's debate. If he doesn't do it, he could be headed for a bad election night.
Yep.
Martha?
All right, a lot at stake. John, thank you very much.
As we mentioned, terrific show ahead for you this morning. I want to start with analysis today. Byron York, chief political correspondent for the Washington Examiner. He is screen right, Fox News contributor, and Washington Times columnist Charlie Hurt, screen left. Actually, it's stage left. Screen right. How you doing, Charlie? Good morning to you. You're 36 hours away from the final debate.
You average all the national polls together. Hillary Clinton's lead is now 7 points. Barack Obama won by 3.9 points over Mitt Romney in 2012. That 3.9-point lead translated into 332 electoral votes to Romney's 206. So Trump has an enormous amount of ground to make up in 21 days.
In the past 24 hours, CBS has Clinton up 9. Monmouth poll has Clinton up 12. There's an NBC poll that came out earlier today where the margin of difference at the moment, there's CBS, Monmouth were next, and NBC had the difference at 8 points. To both of you, when Trump talks about a rigged election, what do you believe the effect of that is, if at all, when I know the argument you make? You believe that's his get out the vote.
It's his get out the vote, yeah.
Right? What do you think it is, Charlie?
I agree. It definitely is that. But, you know, there's a lot of hand-wringing in the media about the fact that he keeps using this term, and I get that. But what's kind of terrifying, or what I think is important about it, is the fact that there are millions and millions and millions of Americans who believe that, and believe that the system or whatever is rigged against them.
The media.
And the media, and you know, everything from global trade to illegal immigration to other economic issues, they feel like the system is rigged against them, and he's speaking for them, and going after Donald Trump for captivating that.
This magnitude's worse, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many people in law enforcement. This is worse than Watergate, what's going on with this. And what does she get out of it? She gets to run for the presidency of the United States. Explain that. Explain that.
All right, let's go to senior national correspondent John Roberts, who is live in Las Vegas with more on this. Good morning to you, John.
Martha, good morning to you. You know, Donald Trump has been anxious to change the subject going into tomorrow night's debate, and he may have just found an issue that he can capitalize on. This idea that there was a quid pro quo offered between the State Department and the FBI to change the classification on some of Hillary Clinton's emails. Donald Trump seized upon that information last night at his rally in Green Bay, Wisconsin, calling for Patrick Kennedy's resignation. Listen to this.
The FBI documents that show Undersecretary of State Patrick Kennedy made the request for altering classification as part of a quid pro quo. In other words, a deal. This is felony corruption by any standard. Undersecretary Kennedy needs to resign.
But tomorrow night's debate, what Donald Trump needs to do in order to get to policy is clear the decks of all of the allegations that have been leveled against him from these 9 women over the last week or so. In debate preparation, he's been working on an answer to
until Election Day, and only one day left before the third and final debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. But before they square off in Las Vegas, Trump teeing off in the latest developments in the Clinton email controversy. As we say good morning, 6 o'clock here in Las Vegas. I'm Bill Hemmer. Welcome to America's Newsroom. We're high on top of the MGM Grand. Great
Kind of like
place.
it up
How you
here.
doing, right?
Kind of like it up here?
So far. I mean, yesterday at this
Fantastic.
time, we had a slight tropical storm roll in here.
Yeah, we're crossing our fingers that that's not going to happen this morning. But welcome, everybody. I'm
Beautiful
Martha
morning.
McCallum. It is a beautiful morning in Las Vegas, Nevada, as we watch the sun come up about a half an hour from now. Boy, what a day it is for these two. They've got 24 hours left before the biggest remaining moment in this process towards Election Day 2016. Hillary Clinton, we understand, is hunkered down again today. That's what she likes to do. She has done that in the previous debates, just sort of focused and gotten ready on her own in private. Meanwhile, Donald Trump does what he loves to do, and that's get out there in front of a crowd, rallying supporters last night in battleground Wisconsin.
So Trump, part of his line attacking Clinton after newly released FBI documents reveal allegations of quid pro quo at the State Department, comparing it to one of the most infamous scandals in U.S. political history.
So Clinton and her cronies have sacrificed your security, your family's safety, and your country's safety as though it meant nothing to her at all, which it didn't.
You're 21 days away from the election. Early voting is already underway in several battleground states. What do you believe is the state of the race today, Charlie?
Well, I think it's a lot closer right now than you would have thought it would be, considering the amount of incoming that Donald Trump has had. Some of it self-inflicted. I think a lot of it was unfair, but whatever. He has endured 2 or 3 weeks of just unimaginably bad press. He was in Wisconsin last night. You know, most people would sort of, that's not the swingiest of swing states anymore. But, you know, he's at about, the average of the polls, he's at about 7%, which is down 7%, which is about where Mitt Romney was at the end of the election. So he's still in this. And I agree with what you just said, or what John Roberts just said, that, you know, when it comes, I think this debate is going to be pivotal. I think this debate could decide this election.
Byron, you watch Melania there. She speaks very well, I think, for her family and for her husband. She takes the high road. And that is something that we haven't seen as much of from her husband. And I wonder if that might be the one posture that could help him expand his voters tomorrow night.
Well, somebody's got to take the high road in the Trump campaign.
Yes,
and
wouldn't that be nice?
She's going to do it. Now, you know, John Roberts said Trump has to find a way to kind of put all these allegations off the table. I'm not sure there is such a way to do that. Hillary Clinton's not going to want to let him do that. So he's going to have to come up with one heck of an answer. One other thing about the polls now. If